Welcome to our panel discussion where I, Srishti Dey, the product owner for DigiPay.Guru, will be moderating the event today. And joining me on the panel are Harsha Yadav and Shankar Saxena, both business development managers for DigiPay.Guru, a leading payment solution provider that enables the banks, fintechs, telecoms, and enterprises to drive financial inclusion globally. Today, we are going to talk about how e-wallets are driving the financial inclusion globally, especially in the developing economies. So, Harsha, how would you differentiate a developing economy to that of a developed economy? And what would you say are the financial challenges that a developing economy faces as compared to a developed economy?
First of all, I would like to thank you, Shrishti, for such a wonderful introduction. And also, warm welcome to all the viewers for appreciating us on this wonderful platform. Today, as per my understanding, as Shrishti asked about the differentiation between a developed and a developing economy, I feel there are three major important factors that influence it. The first would be the low per capita income. The income levels of the people in the developed and the developing economy differs a lot. Second thing, the human index. Even that is one of the major factors that influences the financial inclusion when we talk about in developing economies. And thirdly is the low level of industrialization. Now, because of the low level of industrialization, there are major factors that influences because there is less of opportunities available when we talk about the developed countries economies in terms of the financials, access to financials, financial literacy, educations, savings, and also risk factors does get involved. So as to elaborate on a deeper spectrum of when we're talking about the opportunities given to a developing economy, they do not have technology, and secondly they do not have access to funds that easily and that conveniently as compared to what is available in a developed economy. Thirdly, when we talk about the financial inclusion opportunities, again, these people are deprived of technology, the funds that are available to start up any business, to save the money, wherein also the government policies and regulations are on a higher end to safeguard the consumers, and also the policies are much more established in a developed economy as compared to developing economy. So people tend to take less of risk because if they don't have enough of funds to save and plan for the future, how do we think that these people who are called in like developed economy are called third worlds, as we all know. There is a reason why it is being said in that way. So if they are not given the right amount or adequate amount of opportunities, definitely this gap is going to be there, and that is the reason why the financial inclusion in developed economy is far more, and they are succeeding it at a exuberant rate as compared to what in a developed economy or developing economy that we are looking forward. Other than that, the major stats that also affected is about the gender gap. As we know, in the reports, a recent report of index, it says that there are out of 2 billion unbanked population across the globe, 1.1 billion, like more than 50% are women. Now that gap does play a major role. So, Srishti, can you tell our viewers why financial inclusion is so important? Because this prime word inclusion that we're talking about, let's elaborate that.
Right. So let me first start with explaining what financial inclusion is. Right. So financial inclusion refers to the provision of financial services to each and every individuals and businesses with the financial services that they do not have in the past. Right. The main goal over here is to give these access of financial services regardless of their income slabs, regardless of the locations, and regardless of their education backgrounds. So like when we talk about financial inclusion, it mainly talks about having the savings account for them, having the credits and the insurance, apart from the basic banking and the credit unions. right? So financial inclusion, it can be promoted in various initiatives that can be taken up by the governments. It can be in form of microfinance programs wherein the governments or there are fintechs which can provide micro loans to the users who are earlier, they do not have that access of loans directly from the banks. We can also have mobile banking, which will allow the users to access their banking services directly with the use of mobile phones. We can have financial education given out to the individuals and businesses that will help them plan and manage their finances. And there can be certain government policies altogether, such as that regulate and promote this financial inclusion altogether, right? And now, answering to your question, and when you ask the importance of financial inclusion, that is basically to, like I answered earlier, it is to give the access to the financial services to the users, right? Directly and indirectly, it is also helping in the economic growth because everybody will be coming under that particular ecosystem, right? And once that is done, it also reduces the poverty of that particular economy, and it gives a financial stability to the entire population altogether. And along with that financial inclusion, it also ensures that everybody has is a part of the financial system, and regardless of their socioeconomic statuses, which is also helping in promoting social inclusion, and it reduces the inequality amongst the users.
Absolutely, very nicely put together. Thank you.
So, Shukla, will you help us understand the reasons why people are majorly unbanked in the developing economies, and what are the measures that one can take to fill these gaps?
Sure, Shrishti, thank you for asking this question and adding on to what you said about the importance of financial inclusion. Unfortunately, there are still 1.4 billion of adults globally who are still unbanked, specifically people who are in the rural areas, poorer section of the society, and women. According to Findex report 2021, there are three major reasons why people are unbanked. First one is lack of money and perceived cost of accounts and distance to the banking infrastructure. So, lack of money, I would say that there were 62% of the people who said that they do not have enough money to go to the bank and deposit. It can be also because of the unemployment in these developing countries, right? So when I talk about perceived cost of accounts, like I mentioned earlier, e-wallets and banks require users to maintain a minimum bank balance, right? And they also pay a account maintenance fees, which is actually not there in the e-wallets, right? Then again, women are more likely than men to remain unbanked. So around 13% of the total unbanked population still are women, right? And in countries like Brazil, China, Kenya, Thailand, we see that the account ownership is growing like anything. But the major part of the unbanked population is still women. And this is because, a lot of times women don't have that kind of financial capability. They feel that, there is already one account each of them in the family, so they don't require another bank account, right? Again, when I talk about distance, so in developing countries or in rural areas particularly, there are no branches available, bank branches available. So the distance to travel for very smaller transactions is huge, which is again a barrier in adoption of, that is the main reason why people remain unbanked in these areas. Like you said that what can be the measures to fill these gaps. So, first of all, I would like to say that the government will also have to work along with us. I mean, they have to introduce a compulsory formal identification to these developing countries, because nowadays, when you talk about adoption of e-wallets, you need a mobile phone, and for that you need a SIM card, right? And for getting a SIM card, you definitely require a formal proof of identification, which is very important for governments to make these people, this population, aware about the importance of having a formal identification and give them this access. Now, another factor could be leveraging the mobile phone, to promote the financial inclusion. So, in a lot of high-income economies or developed economies, people have debit cards or credit cards, which is not a part of developing economies. So, we see now that there is a lot of increase in mobile phone adoption in these countries. So, we can leverage that and provide e-wallets in these countries so that we can include these unbanked population and into the financial inclusion, like we said, and provide them the financial services, right? Also, government can take measures along with the e-wallet providers to educate people about how to use e-wallets, right? So this will help them to be more, comfortable with using the technology, and therefore it will increase the financial inclusion in these areas.
Thank you, Shankala. Very well put. So, how do you perceive e-wallets compared to the traditional bankings in terms of cost and convenience to the users in developing countries?
Okay, so Harsha, like I said earlier, e-wallets can offer a number of advantages over traditional banking, right? In terms of cost as well as convenience to these users in developing countries. So when I talk about cost, e-wallets can be less expensive than the traditional banking system because they don't have to maintain a minimum balance in the account or pay any kind of account maintenance fees or any transaction fees on any transactions. Right. Now, when coming to the convenience, definitely e-wallets are more convenient than traditional banking accounts because you don't have to carry a physical card or cash along with you, right? And additionally, e-wallets can be used to make transactions even in the areas where banking hours are inconvenient or there is a limited banking infrastructure. Uh, Again, a very important factor is accessibility. So, e-wallets can be used to increase the financial inclusion by providing access to formal financial services to the users who are formerly relying on the informal economy, right? So, again, adding up to this, it also increases the speed of the transaction. So, with e-wallets, we can increase the speed of transaction, and uh, it is usually faster than the traditional banking systems, right? And especially it is important for the transactions which are smaller or if there are any cross-border transactions. So, however, e-wallets have a lot of benefits, but along with that comes limitations. So, I would like to name a few limitations. Like, it has a very limited functionality. So, when compared to traditional banking systems, e-wallets cannot provide credit or loans or save any savings. So limited customer service, I would say that e-wallets also have a very limited customer service than traditional banking systems, and it becomes important when in these areas where people don't have that kind of education or financial literacy to be able to go to a physical entity and get their disputes resolved, right? Again, a very important part is e-wallet is completely reliant on technology. So it is very important to have a good internet connectivity in these areas. So again, that becomes difficult in the areas, in the rural areas specifically, where internet connectivity is less, right?
Infrastructure is pretty essential.
Yes, definitely. So overall, e-wallets can offer advantages over traditional banking systems in terms of cost and convenience to these users. But again, there are limitations to this, and the choice of whether to use this e-wallet over traditional banking system completely depends on the specific context and the need of the users. Having said that, Shrishti, can you please enlighten us about challenges that these developing countries are facing in terms of e-wallet adoption?
Right. So there are a number of challenges that you already spoke of, but I'll just summarize it in a better way, probably. Firstly, there is limited access to the technology, right? So, like you said, internet is required for the accessing of e-wallet functionalities. Of course, so there is internet requirement. Along with that, there is the power requirement. So, we need the access to the technology. At the same time, we need to have that particular kind of infrastructure in place, which will give the proper connectivity between the different banking facilities and the wallet systems. Then there is the challenge of financial literacy, which is very limited. So people do not know how to use or make the use of e-wallets, and also what are the risks that come with the e-wallet. So they'll be using it in a right manner. Uh, Now, because people are not literate enough and they are not aware of the different scenarios therein, they have got a very limited trust in the digital payments. They do not know. And at the same time, the merchants or the acceptance of digital payments by the merchants is limited. So, because there is nobody who is accepting the digital payments, the people are not adopting to the digital payments. So, that can be a major thing. Along with that, I would say regulatory challenges are also a big issue in the developing economies, right? The governments, they need to be more engaged and put up certain regulatory policies that will bring up the economy and that will actually uh, literate the audience and the economy to adopt the e-wallet systems. And along with that, in e-wallet, sorry, in developing economies, there is a lot of informal ways of financial sectors, right? So there is community lendings. So people are used to those organizations and informal societies.
Right.
So switching from that again is a major challenge in the developing economy. So to overcome these challenges, there has to be strong partnerships between the mobile network or the telecoms, the fintechs, and the banks and the governments, and together they can bring together their necessary expertise to build up the e-wallet systems that's tailor-made for their particular audience. Right? They need to provide the accurate and the adequate infrastructure to the economy. They will have to give out the internet access, that is a must. The design and the UI of the UX that we prepare, it has to be such that it has to be very simple and self-understood, right? There are certain charges like you spoke, right? So that has to be either minimal or you can just lay off those charges at the beginning so that the adoptability increases, right? And there has to be certain measures taken by the government to literate and educate the audience and the economy to make them aware of the financial services that can be given out to them. Along with that, the systems that we prepare, it has to be scalable enough to accommodate the different societies and the different criterias. And like you said, you pointed a point wherein the e-wallets lack and so they cannot provide the banking services, the credits, the loans.
Yeah.
But what e-wallet can also do is they can actually integrate with the existing banks and the services. So there are different providers, there are networks.
APIs can be integrated.
Correct.
Yeah.
So those integrations can be done with the existing service providers, and in a way, all those services can be provided with the help of e-wallets as well. So overall, a successful e-wallet system in a developing economy, it will involve a combination of these factors, and it has to be tailor-made and specific to the audience and the economy that you are putting up the facility in.
That is correct.
Right. Okay, so as Shrishti correctly mentioned about informal economy, I would like to understand from Harsha, how do e-wallets impact the informal economy in these developing countries?
Sure, Shreya. As we all know about how the financial inclusion or e-wallets are impacting or how they are uh, putting their footmarks on the map or in the financial inclusion across the globe. We do have a very prominent differentiation coming up when how it is impacting the informal economies and the formal economies. They do have positive and negatives. So the positives that I would like to put up would be because of the e-wallet implementation or adoption. They have increased the financial inclusion. So even the people who are unbanked or who are not given the opportunities get access to funds. And they are their bare minimum necessity payments, bill payments, transfer funds, or to buy goods and services by merchant payments. As we know about the QR payments, our NFC taps are growing, and people are accepting those even in those countries, because even in the informal economies, slowly and gradually it is making it a mark, and people are loving it because of the ease of access that is it is providing to them. Apart from that, also, when we were talking about the digital payments, and because of the banking or traditional methods, the informal economy in the informal economy now, people, because the introduction of e-wallets, people are started saving their money on the digital payment platforms. They are started using the credits availability. What are they are getting exposure to the credit facilities which earlier they were deprived of. And because the informal markets were ripping them off of interest rates which were substantially high, but because of the digital wallet at low cost, they are getting this particular services. The services that again for savings that they do, and investment opportunities are also increasing for them. Having said that, more and more transparency in terms of transactions. You can see how their spends are, how where are they putting their money into, how their monies or taxes or calculations have been calculated on their every transaction, where what bills are they been paying, and they can keep a tab on that as well. And slowly and gradually, also the cost that banks charge them on the e-wallet side, they have to pay a minimalistic, like next to zero kind of bare minimum charges for the transaction that they are going through. They are putting it through rather than what was there on the informal economy side. Secondly, the negative impact, yes. The major impact would be the informal economy. Those people who are running those, they might lose their jobs. But the positive side is if the e-wallets are implemented in the right way, and it's functioning in the positive direction, even those people can be a part of the formal economy, of the e-wallet or the digital revolution, and they also can get jobs in that. So it's not just a responsibility of the e-wallet provider, the technology, the technology providers, the telecom service providers, the banks, the civils, the government, and also the tech, that is the fintech companies, should merge together and execute this financial inclusion. And that's where how it needs to the smooth sailing of this particular digital ship, payment ship that we are looking to take the revolution and assist reach even the unbanked people. So the major cause is to reach the people who are deprived of these services.
And get them into the
Ecosystem. Everything should be regularized, monitored. So once each and every transaction gets into the economy or the ecosystem of that country, and you're tracked, the funds that will be utilized for the development of the country will be again transparent. So yeah, that's the whole point of it.
Right. And what would you say are the regulatory considerations that one needs to take while they want to build a e-wallet system?
Yes. When we talk about the e-wallet systems, yes, the regulatory bodies and the licensing takes the prime motive, or it's one of the most essential or key elements to run. And definitely the government needs to take counter actions against this in providing licenses. Now, as a businessman, I need to understand if I want to launch a wallet, and what kind of customers or services I'm going to offer on my platform. First of all, once I know that, I would be needing to get licenses from the authorized or designated authority, like for an e-wallet or for a payment gateway or for a money remitter. There are, and also for financial institutions, there are different licenses which are applicable.
Each serving its own purpose.
On purpose. So, as a businessman, if I want to start off a e-wallet business into any developing economy, I first need to understand from which authority I need to get my license done from. Secondly, the second point that comes is the AML guidelines, and also the countering the financing financial terrorism. So these are the major concerns again because of the informal economy that we were facing earlier in developed economies, because of Now, to curtail those good policies the government needs to implement when we're talking about anti-money laundering, so the system also should be monitoring these guidelines through the guidelines, and the regulatory body needs to have some concrete policies around this built up. So the e-wallet transactions, for if any fraudulent activity is happening, any transaction, or there's a particular pattern which is coming up, it should be alarmed and identified.
Right.
So yeah, so as I mentioned, government and the technology provider both needs to be in sync. Thirdly, when we're talking about is a consumer protection, with banks, or for if I could just give you an example of credit cards. So with banks, if there is any fraudulent charge that is reported for, like I get post swipe and it's a fraudulent, I call my bank and just give it a complaint about it. Yeah, so after that, any of my transactions which have gone to that particular merchant have been alarmed by the bank and have been insured about it.
Right.
Wherein when it's not the same scenario with a digital wallet. So to a certain extent, even the government needs to have a policy in place when the e-wallets are there, and to make sure that the user use it comfortably. There should be some policy around it where the transactions, if any fraudulent transactions are happening, that is safeguarded. I
Yeah, that
hope
should
you
be
guys
tried.
agree to that as well.
Yes, of course.
And that's something which when it comes to developing economy, that's a major risk what people face.
Yes.
Right? I'm talking on a layman is using, and he's our consumer at the end of the day when you're talking about it. Apart from that, the technical standards as well. Some e-wallets do provide us with technology when it comes to like biometrics or fingerprints, or when anyone logs into the application, there are a lot of ways how one can log into a system.
Yeah.
By the dual authentication, by OTP, instant sends.
Yeah.
Differs from country to country. The GDPR and how the data is also being stored on the platform.
Yes.
That also matters. And if I am a person who's using a wallet, the regulatory policy should be something around that which safeguards the data transaction policy and the transparency of it. So I think these are the major regulations government should take care of and curtail. Having said that, Shukla, could you help us know our viewers about and help them understand how e-wallets increase access to financial services in developing countries?
Yeah, sure, Harsha. E-wallets can be useful in increasing the access to financial services in developing countries. So, it helps us to reach the unbanked population. This is a population who is living in the rural areas, right? They don't have access to, formal financial services or traditional banking systems, right? And it also has a lesser barrier to entry than traditional banking systems, right? Because, like I said earlier, there is no minimum balance requirement, right? And also fewer documentation requirements. So it makes users easy to access these services. By providing digital payments, it helps users to make digital payments online for goods and services. Thereby, it also increases the customer base of small businesses in these developing countries. And it also provides a range of financial services that is not limited just to digital payments. The users can also use it for savings and credit and insurance, right? And the main factor here would be it is accessible through the mobile devices. Like I said earlier, that we can see the increase in the mobile adoption in these developing countries. So through e-wallets, it becomes easier to include these underbanked or underserved population in financial inclusion. Again, a very important factor is e-wallet reduces the transaction cost involved. So in traditional banking systems, we have to pay for cash withdrawals, or you have to pay account maintenance fees. But this is not in the case of e-wallets. So that's why it actually reduces the transaction cost at a very significant level.
So, Shreya, can you just give us some examples of some successful implementations of e-wallets in a developing country?
Yeah, sure, Shrishti. I would like to share some examples about successful e-wallet programs. First would be M-Pesa. M-Pesa was developed by Safaricom and Vodafone in Kenya, and it allows users to make deposits, withdraw money, and make purchases through their mobile devices. And it has been the world's it has been the most successful e-wallet program in Kenya, and it has been credited as a very successful program in increasing the financial inclusion in Kenya.
Right.
Right. Another example would be Gcash in Philippines. It was launched in 2004, and again it is most widely used in Philippines, and it also allows users to pay their bills, right, make transfers and make purchases using their mobile phones. Lastly, I would conclude with an example of Paytm, which is the most widely used e-wallet program in India, right? And it is based on UPI payment systems. And again, it allows users to pay bills, make transfers, and make purchases very easily through their mobile phones. So yes, these are the programs that have helped these developing countries in being financially inclusive. Having said that, Harsha, there is a lot of buzz going around globally regarding the data privacy concerns. So, could you please tell us more about how e-wallets address security and privacy concerns in developing countries?
Sure, very nice question, Prinkala. So, as we discussed, and we've been discussing about the government policies and regulations and the technology front, and the e-wallets or the fintech providers needs to enhance and ensure certain policies. So, a few highlights that I feel, and as per our research that have come through, is like a strong encryption. Because of this strong encryption data, the users' data is being protected. Whatever information, this can be very sensitive, the encryption data wherein all the transaction details, how secure each and every transaction is, that makes sure that that particular e-wallet, how secure it is, and it helps the trust of an individual of using this particular tool or device or this particular application. Secondly, user authentication. As we know, because of the continuous development technology, the latest SIM phones and that we're using, or smartphones that we're using, biometrics, device management, SIM binding, the again dual authentications that we are talking about out here, pins, OTPs, instant OTPs. So these are different factors which an e-wallet should comprise for the security purpose and also the privacy of your e-wallet. Thirdly, fraud detection and prevention. So, because of the algorithms and the machine learning technology which is present now, the e-wallets that's been adopted by the developing countries or economies should be able to identify if there is a fraudulent pattern, fraudulent transactions that are happening. If which are identified, it should be alarmed in the system and it should be stopped. And further preventive measures needs to be taken accordingly. As we go further, even data protection, a lot of consumer data is being stored on this particular platforms. So in that case, every e-wallet or the backend, how robust it is, that also comes into the picture. When we talking about the data protection, required, how the data has been handled, how securely it is stored, even the migration, and apart from that, regular audits needs to be done on the security for this particular platform. Thirdly, the compliance and regulations. E-wallet needs to follow the required PCI DSS and the GDPR regulation provided by that particular country or economy, which is utmost important for a payment card industry, and also for the data security of that particular application. Customer support, simple support like if they want to block the app or block the card, unblock the app in case of loss, theft, or stolen. That needs to be there. So customer support plays a very vital role in inclusion of the e-commerce, because at the end of the day, though we are working with technology, but talking to a human and getting the issues resolved, or there is some kind of acknowledgement, puts a human being at rest. Yes, it's very crucial and important again.
Yes.
Risk management, when we're talking about a framework which is built around risk management, identifying and mitigating the risk or minimizing the risk as much as possible. When it comes to recovery of the data, if any incident is reported, so that needs to be reported. So that kind of framework needs to be built up for the security and testing. Continuously, simultaneously, audits of the system also needs to be you know produced from time and again. Because of the ever-changing technology, the system should be adopting to those technologies as well. And there are a lot of fraud happen. So
Right.
the system should be robust enough, secure enough for those evolving transaction needs to be tracked down again. So the overall e-wallet has the potential to increase the financial inclusion by security and privacy policies of in a developing country. And it's just not the complete role of the tech providers or the government. As an individual, even we have our responsibilities, like basic hygiene if we follow, like not sharing our OTPs, not
Yeah.
sharing our passwords with anyone, and keeping the phone always with you and not giving the access to any third person. You can minimize the risk at a on a larger level
Right, and
altogether.
that also comes with the financial awareness and education.
True.
Yeah, so
Right.
majorly depends on that. If people are aware of how they are going to use it, then they'll be able to at least put the measures and do the steps from there from
I
themselves.
second that, Shrishti, completely.
So, Harsha, do you have any observations for us to share that proves how the developing countries are responding to the e-wallet adoption?
Yes, Shrishti, thank you. As we say about it by the day or by right now, we are witnessing a paradigm shift in which is driven by the usage or implementation of e-wallets in the globally. And there have been a lot of new customers or new users which are on board parallelly when we talk about technology front because of e-wallet. And there are some tremendous numbers which have come forward. So I have certain stats around that. The market, as per the index report, which was for 2021, shared that the USD market for 2021 would be was estimated around 20 million US dollars. However, it is projected to go with an expansion of 17% CAGR in next 5 years. So it's very near future. In next 5 years, we are going to see a tremendous usage in the number of volumes of transactions, introducing new consumers on using technology, and also giving more and more job opportunities, and ensuring that all the financial inclusions is happening and reaching to the people and the masses as well. Now, the reason why this adoption have been increased is, recently, according to the Spiceworks data, which was launched recently, it did anticipated that the device usage, which was estimated in 2017 to be 27 billion, is going to be increased to 125 billion by 2025 or 2030. My apologies. What's that? Okay, this is escalating the device usage as well because of the smartphone usage also. That means the internet reach is also increasing, and that does not just happen because of the e-wallet standalone, but also there are a lot of government policies, financial help, or government regulations for the infrastructure development, and a lot of investment in those particular developing economies. The governments are taking a lot of initiatives around that. To be very precise, or to be the Southeast Asia is the fastest growing region for mobile wallets in the world, with the CAGR of 25%. When we're talking about overall growth of 311%, we are expecting in the next 5 years. Latin America and Africa, Middle East are the second and third fastest growing regions in terms of adoption of e-wallets. To set and expand by 166% and 147% respectively by 2025. We're just talking about the next 2 years. These are the numbers that we're going to see in terms of volumes and the number of penetration of e-wallet and usage or new users on board. Apart from that, between 2020 and 2025, the numbers of the mobile wallet transactions over 1 billion per year have increased by 27%, creating and growing accepting for the merchants as well. So the merchants who usability earlier, which was one of the reasons why it was not adopting because merchants were not aware of using it, but now even the merchants are participating. So we're going to see a huge surge of usage in the economy and for the e-wallets as well being utilized by it. Okay. So Shrinkla, how would you like to summarize and conclude this session today?
Sure, Harsha. I would like to conclude with the fact that e-wallets have played a significant role in driving financial inclusion in developing countries, like by increasing the access to financial services for the people who were previously relied on the informal economy, right, or were unbanked. E-wallets also provide a number of advantages over traditional banking systems in terms of cost and convenience to the users, who were who have limited access to banking infrastructure and
Banking infrastructure, correct, but it is not just the responsibility of government or private sectors. Yes, they do play a major role, but it's government, private sectors, and also they need to implement scalable technology with the association of fintechs and creating favorable regulatory policies or environment, assisting the e-wallet service providers so that they can serve the undeserved or undeserved population of that particular country. So it's both responsibility of all together, and also government should make policies and assist them or even invest in the accelerating or facilitating the e-wallet solution providers by a good technology infrastructure for the people, like good internet connection, connectivity, and educating the people about the financial inclusion, how this will going to benefit them in the long run. So educating people is also a prime essential element that one needs to consider when we're talking about that. Also collaborating, additionally between government and private sectors, getting all these institutions together, working hand in hand and creating a favorable, harmonious environment for the people for the financial inclusion. And it is not just, the financial literacy and inclusion through e-wallet itself is not self-sufficient. It's very much important that it should be accompanied with other measures such as education, financial education, access to credit, savings, and other financial services by the government.
Right. That brings us to the end of the session today. I'd like to take a moment to thank our panelists and our viewers to join us. I hope that this session was insightful and informative for you all. In case you have any questions or concerns, do not hesitate to reach us out on hello@dgpay.guru. We are always looking forward to ways on improving, and your feedback is invaluable to us. Thank you again for joining us and have a great day ahead.